Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole, and welcome to the podcast. We'll be sharing wisdom and encouragement from my mom, a woman who has created a 36-year marriage full of joy and love, and raised 3 children to adulthood that love her and love each other. We'll be talking about how to be a great mom, how to be a great wife, and how to love your life in the process. I think there's 2 different things when you're raising kids. There's creating the positive qualities that you want and you always talk about creating the adult that you want. Mm-hmm. And then there's mitigating the normal kid, more negative behaviors. So when you think about creating positive qualities, one of the biggest things I think that you've instilled in the boys and I is this intrinsic motivation. So what did you do to create that intrinsic motivation in us?
Somebody had said that one of the hardest things to teach children is delayed gratification. So I tried to find ways that I could teach you that without you realizing you were being taught that. And therefore, doing the hard work gives you the greatest joy at the end. Learning anything, whether it be tennis, golf, taekwondo, whatever. The hard work you put in is going to give you the joy later because you're proud of your accomplishments. So I tried to give you wins along the way, and some were small and some were big, and that's how I tried to teach you, delayed gratification, which I think is a very important lesson for kids to have because not everything comes easy. And
No, almost nothing does, actually.
Right? But
anything worth it.
Yeah, is hard work, and hard work is good, and you got to embrace it and not complain about it.
I remember you also used to do this little thing just kind of in a more day-to-day piece with candy or cookies and trying to teach delayed gratification with that. Talk about that a little bit.
Right, just to understand that I could give you 1 piece of candy today or 2 tomorrow. 1 cookie today or 2 tomorrow. We could go to the park for an hour today or 2 hours tomorrow. Just for them to understand that if they waited, they would get more. You would get more. So I just try to take little daily things and try to do that. And it didn't take long. Nothing took long as you were sincere about it and you reinforced it. You didn't tried your best not to slide back from it. And I just remember Max, our son Max, who was in the Army, he said that that's how he got through the Army, was that he remembered the delayed gratification, that everything is going to come later, but the hard work has to be done now. So.
Yeah, and he did it.
Yep.
That boy put in a lot of hard work. Sweet thing. So what about motivation when your kid doesn't want to do something? When I wouldn't want to do my homework, or if the boys didn't want to do something, what were some of the different tools that you used to help us?
One is letting them suffer the consequences of their decisions, which I think, they call it helicopter parenting. I tried never to do that unless it was a safety issue. Then I definitely helicoptered. But you learning from your own mistakes and suffering the consequences, I think, was very important, especially at a young age. Then you question him. You say, well, why don't you want to do this? What are you concerned about not happening? What are you concerned about happening? What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? Where's your plan A and your plan B? And give them ideas and let them talk through it so they can solve their own problems. And teaching them, in life, you're just doing building blocks to teach them. In life, you're going to have to solve your own problems. They're not always going to be there.
No.
And every day is a blessing for me to be in your life. And so it's just teaching them at a young age, as young as you can, or as young as you start today. When you hear this podcast, is just let them learn how to grow and how to solve their problems, identify them, think of scenarios, and just role play with them. And sometimes they're afraid of what their friends might think. They're afraid of what their teacher might think. They want to be the cool kid, and they're not going to be the cool kid. And just going through what that looks like, not being the cool kid or being the cool kid, what comes with that. So,
yeah, that's really good. So I also remember, for me, because I was very intrinsically motivated in a lot of ways, instead of forcing me to do something, you'd ask me questions to think about it. So I just really remember, supposed to be doing my homework, sitting on the couch reading or something instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing. And you'd ask me
The dreaded question.
Yeah. So go ahead, talk about it.
Is this the best decision you could be making? Mm-hmm. And I just tried to make your brain move to think, what is the best thing you could be doing for yourself? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, you'd say, no, not. And I was like, well, this is a choice you're making right now. Mm-hmm. It's going to have consequences tomorrow. If you don't do your homework, how's that going to make you feel tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And you go, oh. But I was like, okay, it's your choice, and let them choose the negative sometimes. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Let them get in trouble at school. Right?
Yeah, you might go sit in the class and listen and then watch them get in trouble, but
yeah, I have done that many times.
Would you do that with every child, or are there other kinds of personalities that you would treat differently trying to get them to do something like that?
Well, I think it has to do, number one, with the activity level. Mm. If somebody's bouncing off the walls, you've got to give them the chance to go out and play and run and set the timer and make them run around, do 50 push-ups, 500 sit-ups, whatever. You've got to get the
wiggles out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can sit down and say, let's sit down and do this and set the timer, and then after this, let's go out and run again, and see if you can beat your record. And so that's one way of doing it. You just have to look at each kid. I just made sure that what they needed at that time to get them to do what they needed to do. Mm-hmm. And if they made that choice, that's your choice. Mm-hmm. Suffer the consequences.
Right. But I think that modulating, since kids don't have the capacity to understand their own willpower at the time, but teaching, sometimes you do need to run, or sometimes you may need a different location, or there's a distraction or something, but kind of helping that kid process through what they're feeling so that they can do the tasks that they need to do while still getting to do that task, I think is really wise. Because I see a lot of people try to force instead of saying, okay, well, clearly you're distracted. Like, why don't we go do something quickly and then come back and focus for this time, or something like that.
Yeah. And not every kid is going to want to sit there all day long and learn in school. No. And you have to realize that your kid is not like that. Your kid's going to be smart. It's just, you have to teach them a different way.
Mm-hmm. And so what would you do with a kid that was more, maybe not a sit down book reading process, but more of a hands-on process, of course, equally brilliant, just differently brilliant. Sure. What would you do with a kid with each of those kind of different learning styles?
Well, there's great books about learning, whether you're a visual learner or an auditory learner or a hands-on learner. And I always thought it was good to engage a couple different ones at the time, even though they may be an auditory learner, teach them with their hands too. Mm-hmm. And I just took each child where they were and what I wanted them to learn.
Okay, I like that. All right, so that is motivation. Okay, so what about dealing with failure? Because I vividly remember, so I was a bit of a perfectionist, and I vividly remember I always got, pretty good grades, but one day I came home with a D on my test. So talk a little bit about how with each of your different kids, because the three of us are very different, how did you help us deal with failure and learn how to deal with that?
Well, with you,
it's different.
Nobody asked you to be a perfectionist. That was something you brought on as the first child. Nobody asked that of you. You asked that of yourself. And
in fact, you actually actively tried to teach me to not be a perfectionist and be okay with the fact that I wasn't perfect.
Right, because as I've always said, if God wanted you perfect, he would have made you perfect. He did not make you, me, nobody's.
Certainly not.
So in order to do that, I celebrated when you weren't at your best. And when you got the D, I had a party for you because, a family party, not the whole school, but because I was like, wow, okay, what are you going to do different? How are you going to not do that again if you're so frustrated with yourself? I tried to give you ideas and let you motivate yourself so it didn't happen again, and it never happened again. Boy, that was fun when you got a D.
Yeah, I just remember being in the car. I was so nervous to tell you because, I wanted to be good, and I knew I hadn't been putting in the work to get a better grade, and I was just so nervous. And I just remember you clapping, like really clapping for me, and kind of celebrating that. And it was just such a weird moment. But I think you also did a really great job of teaching me when I do fall short, how to put in the work to be better. Like, it's okay, you're gonna mess up, but then I just spent a lot of time in tutoring. I remember you getting me tutors, taking me places that I needed, really teaching me how to have the skills to be good at something, as opposed to just requiring it of me or expecting it of me without, giving me the tools to do it.
Well, there's so many times those little things like getting a D is an opportunity to teach you. And the teaching you was, did you do your best? Do you feel good about the job that you put in, the time you put in? Do you think you could have done better? And how could you have done better? And do you want to feel this way again? And it was always, no, I didn't do my best. No, I don't want to feel this way. It's like, well, what do you think you could do so it doesn't happen again? And you never got another date. But that's all on you. Well, I would have had another.
Definitely wasn't perfect moving forward, but
no, absolutely not. Nor did I want you perfect, because that comes its own challenges.
very true. Let's talk about, how do you build patience in your child?
Building patience in your child first comes with yourself. I had to have patience as a mother and not get frustrated with them. And your dad taught me something very, very good, which was just being patient, just taking a deep breath and trying to mirror what behavior I wanted you to have. I tried to have that behavior. So if I was upset and frustrated and ranting and raving, it wasn't going to get you. You're going to shut down. So,
Or mirror that.
right. Or mirror that, which would be horrible. But so I just tried to just talk to you as an adult when it was time, when you were in a right frame of mind to talk, not where you're screaming and crying if you were little, but just sit down and talk it over, next to each other on the couch, or you on my lap, just hold you and just pet your head and talk about it. It was like, why do you think you were crying like that? What did that get you? And sometimes kids just are frustrated. Sometimes we're frustrated. We need to cry. And sometimes I cried in front of you. I was like, enough already. But
Okay, love that. So that's patience. What about a sense of adventure? So you were speaking a little bit earlier about giving us our independence while also protecting us. But how do you cultivate a sense of adventure in your child and teach them to be independent and teach them to be, going out and tackling new things while also keeping an eye on them?
Absolutely. I think part of the adventure is just getting out of the house, going on road trips, going hiking, seeing all there is to see, loving and enjoying, the earth, God's beauty, and taking wonder and making it so fun. And, a long hike and you're sweaty and you're tired. I felt like I did the best thing as a mom. If all three of my kids were exhausted and tired and filthy by the end of the day, I was like, great mom. And just making joy out of the things that some people would be afraid of. I tried to turn it around and make it joyful and make you inquisitive and excited about learning and trying new things. And are you going to fail? Yeah, you're going to fail, but so what? Let's do it again. And just finding real life examples of people that, like Thomas Edison and all the people that have invented things, and making it fun to learn and see how people failed, but they also succeeded. And failure's okay, because that's one step closer to success.
And so how did you protect us during that?
Putting you in an environment where you were safe. Like if we went to the store when you were little, I made sure, even if I was, trying to get money out of the wallet or credit card, you had to hold on to my pants. I knew where you were. And we never played hide and seek out in public, ever, because my eyes had to be on you and you had to be on me. So you had to be able to see me. I didn't want you screaming and crying in fear, being afraid, because when they're afraid, your children are afraid, it stops their adventure. So I just did my best to put you in an environment where you were safe. And I knew exactly, as much as I could, what was going to happen. I mean, obviously things happen, but not on my watch where you're going to be, taken off by somebody or abducted or whatever. And just teaching you that, you need to know where I am. I need to know where you are. It's a respect we have for each other.
So that's how you were able to take us out. But I also remember we did a lot of skiing, hiking, rock scrambling, we've all been skydiving. Like there's been quite a bit of adventure scuba diving, snorkeling. But how did you balance kind of outside, more physically dangerous adventures? Because you were always very careful, I think, when there was human danger. So how did you balance, kind of physical adventure and more physical danger and people danger?
Right. Well, with physical adventure, I just made sure that you got a lot of exercise. And you did Taibo with me. You did lots of
We did.
different-
That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, we all did martial arts. You required us all to get our black belts.
Because I wanted you to be able to protect yourself and to obviously, be strong. And just in that, I just assessed the adventure. And I was like, okay, they could fall and break their leg, but I know where the hospital is. I can get you there. I just made sure that your food intake, I did the best I could with your food intake. I, took my battles there, that you were healthy and that you weren't a sickly child, that, that was a blessing, obviously, that we had. And I just let you take adventures more and more, like parkour. The boys had to climb over everything and rock scramble and
Dirt bikes.
yeah. But when you did do things like scuba diving, I made sure you had the best scuba instructor, so you knew what to do, and I trusted him. And I just tried to seek out the best person in that field that I had access to teach you, or I would read about it. Your dad was a huge adventurer too, and he made me relax on that too, because they're going to be fine, and a lot of it is they're going to be fine because you were fine and I was fine. So just letting them go on that. And, I mean, obviously you don't want them jumping off a big cliff, there's dangers you protect them from, but
Never jump in head first.
yeah, never jump head first in the pool. Thank you. It's just letting them build on who they are and the qualities and traits and athletic abilities that they have. And if they don't have it, get them to have it. So,
yeah, because I'm really glad we got to do a lot of physical adventure, because I now have lots of skills and I understand what's safe and not. But we never really had many issues. I mean, I think the way we did adventure was very, we wore the helmets, we wore the pads if we needed to, but we got to do everything. And we got to do a lot of crazy stuff too. I mean, I just think about, I think you did a really good job of breaking conventional rules for us to have fun. Like, I think about, she used to put down boards and things in our living room, and the boys would ride scooters or ride bikes in the living room, like do all these kinds of fun, kind of crazy things that allowed us to be creative and fun, but also in a way that was back to the people danger part where she could see us, so it was very safe while also being crazy and fun. So I thought that was a good balance. How do you create empathy in your child and teach them to be empathetic towards others?
I taught you to just try to put yourself in other people's shoes. We would say, why do you think this has happened? What could have happened that have made them come to this point in their lives? And we talk when you were a little bit older, like maybe 8, 9, 10, about other parenting decisions that people have made towards them, and just went through all different scenarios. And I just always tried to get you to think about what other people were feeling and why they were doing what they were doing. Like sometimes kids were mean to you. I say, I knew what was going on in their home. I knew that they were on the verge of divorce or whatever, but you didn't. And I didn't necessarily want you to know that, but I would just say something could be going on in their home that you don't know about, that this is the avenue that they're taking to get their frustration out. And you just need to be kind to them and loving towards them. And you don't ever let somebody treat you meanly or obviously hurt you, but you just, give them the grace, because you don't know what's going on in their life. So it's just a road taken that would just look at all different scenarios of life, how to get you to understand that being kind to other people is so important, and treating people well, whether it be the janitor, the maid, anybody up to a CEO. You treat everybody with respect. And all of you do. You all can talk to anybody.
I vividly remember you doing that when I had to be in middle school, and there was this boy that was acting out and crazy and just driving me insane. And that's exactly what you said to me, that there could be something going on in his home life that could be impacting why he's choosing to act like this. And it just really changed my perspective, because I think when you're immature, you just ascribe bad behaviors to people just because in more in a vacuum. And as I've gotten older, learned a lot more that it's not always sometimes it's because they're being bad or rude or annoying, but sometimes it's because they're reacting to something else that's going on, and having that empathy and kind of that more forgiving stance towards people not only is more accurate and truthful, but is also a better way to go about life, allows you to deal with the problems properly and also not drive yourself crazy being upset at somebody. I like that you talk about raising adults, and I think, kind of there's two pieces of it that I see: that idea of who do you want this person to be when they're an adult, and think about kind of what's the end game, and putting that in when they're younger. So it's not just, are they a well-behaved 4-year-old, but are we teaching them kind of these broader character qualities so that they can be a good person and a successful person when they're older, whatever's, not necessarily just monetary success, but I think about, strength of relationships. With my brothers are both married, and they have just the most beautiful marriages, and ethics and all of that as an adult. But then I think also, to your point, that idea of how do I discipline now so that this behavior isn't magnified when they become an adult? Because I think sometimes people don't nip it in the bud. And you see that a lot with kids, because I'll ask mom, how did you deal with us when we were having crazy tantrums, or if we were rude to you, or if we hit you or something? And she's like, oh, you never did because I stopped it. So I think about it kind of in both those ways. And so is that kind of how you thought about it, is both who am I creating, but then also dealing with this bad behavior early will stop it from happening later?
Yeah. If you teach a child at 2 that no means no, instead of teaching them at 16 that no means no, your life is a lot more peaceful. So I just looked at what I wanted your behaviors to come out as, and I took the time to teach you those correct behaviors, and I guided you towards those correct behaviors. Not that you were ever perfect, but you didn't you weren't defiant with me. And when you were, I just explained to you, or we'd sit down and have a talk and say, why do you think it's okay to say this to me? And I would just have you talk through it. And sometimes I had to rely on outside help, outside parenting coaches or other moms, or things to get through, because I didn't know a good way to nip that in the bud, or to turn you to a different direction. So I would go get help, or books, or podcasts, or whatever it was that was available, that I found the answer to work. But I just searched. I searched, and I didn't give up, because I wanted a certain type of adult that was loving, caring, and that would bring joy to the rest of my life. And you do.
Oh, I love you.
I love you too. And say it again. What do you want me to say?
So teach
question me.
Ask the question. You're so cute.